It had only been a month since John started his new job at a major bank, and already he felt like he had hit the jackpot with this position. Fresh out of college and working as a junior manager, he was thrilled to join such a prestigious firm. But his excitement wasn't just about the job. He quickly realized that the bank's corporate events were top-notch. It just so happened that he joined right before the CEO's birthday, a milestone that was being celebrated with a grand corporate party. John wasn't the only fresh face at the bank, but he had already sensed that his career there depended on how well he could blend in with the established staff. His mother, always ambitious for him, reminded him before the event, "John, keep your eyes open. Who knows? Maybe you'll meet someone interesting." She had high hopes he'd meet a wealthy woman at the party, a nice advantage for her son's future. John half-heartedly laughed it off, but her words lingered as he made his way to the venue. The party was extravagant, filled with stylish attendees in suits and designer dresses. John watched the guests with a mixture of awe and calculation, wondering who might be valuable to know. And then, he spotted someone, Hope, a young woman sitting off to the side, looking somewhat unimpressed with the festivities. She wore a plain dress, her hair tied back simply, and seemed uninterested in mingling. John gave her a quick, dismissive glance, assuming she was likely a newcomer like him, without much status. The party continued, and John spent most of the evening chatting up women who looked affluent and promising, or so he thought. To his frustration, every woman he approached was either already taken or not quite the financial catch his mother would approve of. He finally gave up for the night, leaving the party feeling slightly disheartened. But a week later, everything changed. The CEO arrived at the office and introduced the team to their new regional manager, the head of their entire branch. To John's astonishment, it was Hope, the same woman he had dismissed at the party. Today, she looked completely different, wearing a sleek black suit, her hair down and styled elegantly, exuding authority. John realized with a sinking feeling that he had completely overlooked her at the event. After the initial shock, John composed himself and decided that he had to make things right. Over the next few days, he made every effort to get to know Hope, greeting her whenever possible, always with a respectful smile. He even managed to accidentally run into her at a nearby supermarket one evening. Flashing his best smile, he greeted her warmly. "Well, fancy meeting you here, Ms. Rivers," he joked, acting as though their meeting was pure coincidence. Hope, slightly amused, engaged in polite conversation. To John's relief, she didn't seem to remember him as the guy who had brushed her off at the party. As their conversations grew more frequent, John invited her out for coffee. He made sure to portray himself as a dedicated young man who cared about family, going so far as to make up a story about helping an old classmate babysit. The story seemed to work, as Hope softened, seeing him as a responsible and caring individual. After a few weeks of friendly interactions, John finally built up the courage to ask her on a date. To his delight, she agreed, and their relationship began to blossom. Over time, Hope fell for his charm and believed in the good intentions he presented to her. John, meanwhile, couldn't believe his luck. He had started dating the head of his branch, a woman with an impressive salary and status. It didn't take long for John to realize that Hope could be his golden ticket. She was not only intelligent and confident but also financially secure in ways that aligned perfectly with his ambitions. Under his mother's subtle encouragement, he set his mind on a goal, a proposal. John reasoned that if he could solidify his relationship with Hope quickly, he would secure a stable and prosperous future. Barely a month into their relationship, John decided to propose. The decision was sudden, but John justified it as a practical move. He planned an intimate evening, setting the stage for a private proposal that he hoped would appeal to Hope's sense of romance. They went to a small, upscale restaurant, with dim lighting and soft music, the kind of place that was sure to set the perfect mood. John put on his most heartfelt expression as he took Hope's hand across the table, professing his admiration for her strength, intelligence, and grace. He spoke with carefully rehearsed words, describing how she made him want to be a better man and how he couldn't imagine his future without her in it. In that moment, John's charm was in full force, and Hope was taken by his seemingly genuine affection. With a small, velvet ring box in hand, he knelt beside her and proposed. "Hope, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me," he said, looking deeply into her eyes. "Will you marry me?" Hope, overwhelmed with emotion, accepted his proposal without hesitation. She saw in him the qualities she valued: kindness, ambition, and family values, and believed that he genuinely cared for her. She had been taken in by his warmth and charm, never suspecting that his intentions might be less than sincere. John's mother was thrilled by the news, celebrating her son's engagement to a woman who could offer not just love, but financial stability and career connections. She sent a congratulatory message to Hope, making a show of welcoming her into the family, even though her excitement stemmed more from the perceived benefits than from any true affection for her future daughter-in-law. The engagement moved swiftly, with John encouraging Hope to plan a small, private wedding. He wanted to avoid questions or attention from colleagues who might see the sudden engagement as too fast, maybe even opportunistic. Hope, trusting his reasons, went along with his wishes, grateful that he preferred a personal, meaningful celebration. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, John's charm never wavered. He continued to shower Hope with affection, carefully hiding any hints of his true motivations. For him, each loving gesture was calculated to strengthen her trust in him. His actions convinced Hope that she had found someone who truly appreciated her for who she was. But despite his outward sincerity, John's intentions were focused on the lifestyle he believed marrying Hope would bring. His mother's words echoed in his mind as he prepared for the next step in his carefully laid plan, envisioning a future where he could rely on Hope's resources to open doors he might not have reached on his own. The engagement period passed quickly, and Hope felt happier than ever, excited about starting a new chapter with the man she thought she could trust. Little did she know, John's love was only as deep as the promises he imagined her success could fulfill for him. Just weeks before the wedding, John's perfect plan hit an unexpected snag. Due to downsizing, he was abruptly laid off from his position at the bank. The news left him stunned, especially since he had hoped his role there would eventually provide the connections and credibility he'd need to climb the corporate ladder. Without a steady income, his ambitions now rested solely on his engagement to Hope. At first, John hid the job loss from Hope, pretending to go to work each day while he tried to figure out his next move. But after a few days, he realized he couldn't keep up the charade. With his wedding around the corner, he needed to address the situation before it spiraled further out of control. So, one evening, he mustered the courage to tell Hope about the layoff. He softened the news by framing it as a temporary setback. "It's only a matter of time before I'm back on my feet," he reassured her, putting on an air of confidence. "I have some leads, and I'm sure something will work out soon." Hope, who was genuinely in love with him, responded with empathy and support. She squeezed his hand and assured him that she was there for him. "You don't have to worry," she said warmly. "I believe in you, and we'll get through this together. Besides, once we're married, we'll be a team. You've been there for me, and now it's my turn to support you." Her words, while comforting, planted an idea in John's mind. He began to see his situation not as a problem but as an opportunity. Why rush to find another job when he had Hope's resources to fall back on? She was already supportive and clearly willing to help him out. John saw a chance to ease off the pressure of job hunting, knowing that once they were married, he could rely on her income to maintain their lifestyle. Over the following weeks, John subtly leaned into this new arrangement. He stopped searching for jobs altogether, making vague excuses about the job market being too competitive. He found ways to pass off his lack of work as a period of self-discovery, convincing Hope that he was focusing on the right opportunity rather than any opportunity. Hope, fully trusting him, bought into the narrative. She encouraged him to take his time, assuring him that she was financially stable enough for both of them in the meantime. Hope's unwavering support left John feeling both relieved and more certain of his decision to marry her. This was exactly what he had hoped for, a partner who could provide stability while he pursued a lifestyle without the need for a demanding career. However, what John couldn't see was the toll this was beginning to take on Hope. Despite her outward optimism, she was quietly feeling the pressure of being the sole breadwinner. She'd worked hard to get to where she was and had always dreamed of building a family based on mutual support. Yet, as the wedding approached, she found herself shouldering more of the burden, wondering if John was truly invested in their future or simply enjoying the security she provided. But Hope brushed off these thoughts, trusting that her love and faith in John would pull them through. She believed in his potential, thinking this rough patch was just a temporary hurdle. As they moved closer to their wedding day, she set her doubts aside, choosing to believe that once they were married, John would regain his footing and prove that their love was as solid as she hoped. Little did she know, John's real intentions were only just beginning to reveal themselves. The day of the wedding finally arrived, a modest yet elegant celebration that Hope had planned with care. The venue was an intimate garden, adorned with soft lights and beautiful floral arrangements. Hope looked radiant in her gown, her heart full of anticipation and love for the man she believed was her true partner. John, on the other hand, viewed the day through a different lens. To him, it marked the beginning of a comfortable life, where he could finally let go of his job worries and rely on Hope's financial support. As the ceremony progressed, he wore a charming smile, shaking hands with guests, but his mind drifted now and then to the comfort he expected to enjoy in the near future. After the vows, the reception kicked off with laughter and champagne, and guests filled the room with joy and excitement. John's older brother, Matt, a bit more cynical and outspoken, had caught wind of John's true intentions through late-night conversations. Matt had always been wary of John's ambitious streak and the way he approached relationships. As the night wore on and the drinks flowed, Matt couldn't resist the opportunity to probe his brother's motivations. In a quiet corner, Matt pulled John aside, eyeing him with a smirk. "So, little brother, you finally landed the golden ticket, huh?" Matt teased, his tone dripping with sarcasm. John, tipsy and feeling victorious, laughed along. "What can I say? It's not every day you meet someone who checks all the boxes." He chuckled, adding, "smart, successful, and a nice salary to boot." Hope was mingling nearby, and while she couldn't hear everything, she caught enough to notice the exchange between the brothers. She drifted closer, hoping to overhear a bit more of their conversation, her curiosity piqued by the way Matt was needling John. "You really pulled it off," Matt continued, his voice low but pointed. "Marrying up, living easy, just like you always dreamed, huh?" John, not realizing that Hope was within earshot, responded with a careless grin, "Hey, I'm just doing what's best for both of us. She's got the means to support us while I figure things out. No harm in that, right?" Hope felt her stomach twist as she absorbed his words, her heart sinking with a dawning sense of betrayal. The realization hit her hard. John's commitment to her might not be based on love or partnership, but on convenience and security. Her mind raced, replaying all the little moments that suddenly took on a new meaning, his reluctance to job hunt, his quick proposal, and the way he had leaned into her support without hesitation. Desperately trying to steady herself, Hope decided to confront him directly. She walked up to John, her expression calm but her eyes filled with hurt. "John, can we talk for a moment?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. John's face shifted, realizing that she might have overheard part of his conversation. He put on his best apologetic look, following her to a more private corner of the garden. "Hope, whatever you think you heard," he began, but she cut him off. "John, I heard enough," she said quietly, her voice firm. "I've supported you because I thought we were building something together. I thought we shared the same dreams for the future. But it sounds like your plans might be very different from mine." John fumbled for words, attempting to downplay his previous statements, but Hope wasn't buying it. The weight of her disappointment, coupled with the realization of what he had truly been after, was impossible to ignore. Hope took a deep breath, looking him straight in the eyes. "I believed in us, John. I believed you cared about me for who I am, not what I could give you. But it seems I was wrong." Without waiting for a response, Hope turned and walked back into the crowd, her heart breaking but her resolve firm. She knew in that moment that she couldn't move forward with a marriage built on deception and self-interest. As the reception continued, Hope maintained her composure, determined to carry herself with dignity. By the end of the night, she quietly arranged for an annulment, leaving John to face the consequences of his actions alone. He tried to reach out to her, but she had made her decision. The wedding day that had started with love and hope had revealed the truth, and Hope walked away, her trust shattered but her self-respect intact. She knew that she deserved a future based on genuine love, not convenience, and she would find it on her own terms. The day after the wedding, Hope moved quickly to organize the annulment, but she still had one last message for John before walking away for good. That evening, she hosted a small gathering for family and close friends who had supported her through the whirlwind romance, the wedding, and now, the shocking realization of her husband's betrayal. Everyone was unaware of what had happened between her and John. As far as they knew, this was just a post-wedding celebration. At the dinner, Hope remained calm, carrying herself with grace and poise. As the evening progressed, she tapped her glass, signaling that she wanted to make a toast. The room quieted, and she stood up, her face poised, though her eyes held a steely determination. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate what should have been the start of a wonderful journey," she began, her voice steady. "I've learned a lot over these past few months. Love, commitment, trust, those things should never be taken lightly." John, standing near the back, shifted uncomfortably. He was aware that Hope had overheard parts of his conversation with Matt at the wedding, but he hadn't expected her to be so composed. He watched as she continued speaking, realizing that her tone carried a note of finality. "Sometimes," Hope continued, her gaze sweeping the room, "we think we know someone's intentions, only to discover that their motives aren't as pure as we believed. We hope for a partnership, for genuine love, and for shared dreams. But occasionally, people view relationships as opportunities, not as commitments." A murmur went through the crowd as people exchanged puzzled glances, sensing the underlying message in her words. Hope smiled gently, never once losing her composure. "But, you know, life has a funny way of revealing what truly matters and who genuinely cares." Turning directly to John, she added, "I've realized that some people are like lottery tickets. They seem like winners at first glance, but when you scratch the surface, you find they're nothing but disappointments." The room fell silent as her words registered. Friends and family members looked at John, the implication of Hope's statement becoming clear. John's face paled, and he looked down, avoiding everyone's gaze. He hadn't expected this level of honesty, nor the strength with which Hope was confronting the truth. After a pause, Hope raised her glass. "To real love, to honesty, and to new beginnings," she said firmly, her voice full of resolve. The guests raised their glasses, somewhat bewildered but following her lead, and Hope took a small sip before setting her glass down. She turned to her close friends and gave them a warm, reassuring smile, signaling that she would be fine. John attempted to approach her afterward, mumbling apologies and excuses, but Hope stopped him with a single look. "John, you said enough. We both know the truth, and that's all I need. I hope you find what you're really looking for, but it's not me." With that, Hope left the gathering, her head held high. She'd walked into the dinner a betrayed bride, but she left as a woman who knew her worth and was ready to reclaim her future on her own terms. Following her powerful speech at the gathering, Hope put the final touches on the annulment paperwork, ensuring her relationship with John would be legally dissolved. She felt an immense relief at closing this chapter of her life, even though it was painful to acknowledge the depth of his deception. She had spent months thinking she was building a life with someone who shared her values, only to learn that he had seen her as little more than a means to an end. True to her character, Hope handled the process with quiet dignity. She informed her closest friends and family members, who had supported her through the entire ordeal. They rallied around her, expressing shock and anger at John's behavior, but also admiration for her strength and resilience. When the annulment was finalized, John made one last attempt to reach out, calling her and sending texts filled with apologies and pleas. He tried to justify his behavior, saying it had been a moment of weakness and that he had truly grown to love her. But Hope, unwavering, left his messages unanswered. She knew that entertaining his excuses would only drag her back into a toxic situation, and she was determined to leave that part of her life behind. Instead, she focused on rebuilding her own sense of peace. She took time off work, reconnecting with her passions and spending weekends away from the city to clear her mind. One weekend, Hope retreated to a quiet cabin near the mountains where she could reflect without distraction. She took long walks, journaled, and allowed herself to process the hurt while embracing her newfound freedom. As the days passed, Hope felt herself healing. The experience had left scars, but it had also taught her invaluable lessons about trusting her instincts and prioritizing her own well-being. For so long, she had been willing to sacrifice her peace for the sake of someone else's ambitions. Now, she was learning that her own happiness was worth protecting at all costs. Meanwhile, word about the annulment spread through their professional circles, and John found himself facing the consequences of his actions. Former colleagues who once admired him began to see him in a new light, recognizing the self-serving motives that had driven him. He quickly realized that his attempt to climb the social ladder had cost him not only his relationship but also the respect of those around him. With her ties to John officially severed, Hope felt a sense of closure. She returned to work with a renewed focus, channeling her energy into projects that excited her. Colleagues noticed her newfound confidence, seeing a woman who had weathered betrayal yet emerged stronger and more determined than ever. Through her quiet resilience, Hope redefined what it meant to move forward with dignity. She had lost a relationship, but she had regained something far more valuable, her sense of self-worth and the conviction to live life on her own terms. With the annulment behind her, Hope threw herself into a fresh start. She decided to make meaningful changes that would bring her peace, joy, and fulfillment, things she'd neglected while tied to a relationship built on deception. She began to focus on the things she loved most, from advancing her career to exploring new hobbies. For the first time in months, Hope felt genuinely excited about her future. Hope's friends and family continued to rally around her, providing the support and companionship she needed as she moved on. She accepted their invitations to dinners, weekend trips, and casual get-togethers, things she had avoided during her whirlwind romance with John. Being with loved ones reminded her of the genuine connections she had in her life, relationships built on mutual respect and love, not hidden motives. Her confidence grew, and with each passing day, she became more certain that she was exactly where she needed to be. At work, Hope flourished. Free from the emotional weight of her failed marriage, she found new clarity in her role. Projects she'd once viewed as overwhelming now felt invigorating, and her productivity soared. Colleagues and superiors took notice, and her dedication quickly led to opportunities for advancement. She was reminded of why she had always loved her job. Her drive and resilience were now her own once again, and she was determined to create a future solely on her terms. In her free time, Hope explored new passions she had set aside during her relationship. She took up painting, finding comfort and freedom in creating art, and even joined a local hiking group. The time spent outdoors and with like-minded people gave her a renewed sense of independence, a feeling she cherished deeply. Months passed, and with each day, the memory of her time with John faded, replaced by the experiences she was creating in her new life. Her family saw how much she'd grown, and their admiration for her strength was evident. "You've become an even stronger person through all this, Hope," her mother told her one evening. "I'm so proud of the way you've handled everything." Hope smiled, grateful for her family's unwavering support. The pain she'd felt was real, but she now saw it as a stepping stone to the future she was building. She didn't regret her experiences with John. They had shown her what she truly valued in herself and in others. Through the hardship, she had learned that true love couldn't be rushed, forced, or used for gain. It had to be genuine, built on mutual respect and authenticity. Though her path had been challenging, Hope found herself more grounded and fulfilled than ever before. She looked forward to the future with confidence, open to love, but no longer dependent on it to define her happiness. With each passing month, Hope found herself not only healing but thriving. The experience with John had forced her to reevaluate her life, her relationships, and, most importantly, her self-worth. She realized that her happiness was something she could create on her own terms, and that genuine connections, whether in friendships, family, or romantic relationships, were rooted in trust and honesty. Hope took time to reflect on everything she had learned. The whirlwind romance, the betrayal, and the annulment had all been painful, but they had taught her valuable lessons about resilience, boundaries, and intuition. She now knew to trust her instincts and to never ignore red flags, no matter how strong her feelings for someone might be. Her career continued to flourish, and Hope began mentoring younger women in her field, sharing the insights she'd gained about navigating both professional and personal relationships. She became known not only for her skill and dedication, but for her wisdom and empathy. Colleagues and friends saw her as a source of strength, and many admired the dignity with which she had handled such a difficult chapter. Hope also found herself more open to new experiences and friendships, no longer holding back out of fear or insecurity. She invested in her passions, joined a local art community, and traveled to places she had always dreamed of seeing. Each new experience reinforced her independence and her joy in discovering life on her own. One evening, while attending a charity event, Hope struck up a conversation with someone who shared her interests. He was kind, grounded, and genuine, qualities she had come to recognize and appreciate deeply. Though she was cautious, she felt a spark she hadn't expected, and she allowed herself to enjoy the connection without pressure or expectation. For the first time since her marriage to John, she felt ready to open her heart again, knowing that her happiness didn't depend on anyone else. As Hope continued to build a life rich with meaningful connections and self-discovery, she realized that what she had once seen as a painful betrayal had ultimately led her to the person she was meant to be. Her journey had taught her that real love would come when it was right, but that her happiness, peace, and fulfillment were hers to cultivate every day. Looking out over the city lights that night, Hope felt a sense of gratitude. She had come through the hardest of times stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled than she could have imagined. And as she walked forward into the future, she knew that she would never again settle for anything less than genuine love and respect, for herself and for those she chose to let into her life.